Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you might be. I am Nicole BC, and you know everything. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. It has been a minute since I've revisited the Relatables interview series, and there are a lot of reasons for that. I haven't skipped a podcast episode, so if you're looking for the why, I encourage you to go back to the first week of October, which will help you to understand why the schedule got a little bit wonky. But I cannot tell you how thrilled I am to finally, because I think we've been talking about this for years, finally have Emily Clintworth on the podcast today. And she is someone that I actually met in a mastermind a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. And we've been parallel playing in terms of entrepreneurship and creativity and even spirituality. And a lot of the relatables I purposefully bring onto this podcast because they're people who inspire me. There are people who have shown me how they approach their own business, but also how they interweave their personal and spiritual experiences into the art that they create. And Emily is all of those things and more. She has an MA in creative writing and has combined her passion of writing with her love for astrology. And as a Chicago astrologer, she provides a comfortable and exciting approach to astrology, transforming this complex language into easy to follow insights and self discovery. As a seasoned and versatile professional in the intersection of astrology, education, and entrepreneurship, her mission is to empower aspiring astrologers with not only the profound wisdom of the stars, but also the essential business acumen to thrive in their practice. Drawing from a rich background as an author, educator, and entrepreneur, she is committed to instilling a holistic understanding of astrology while imparting the practical skills necessary for her success in business. And before I let you talk, Emily, which I promise I will do, I just want to say I have not only learned so much from Emily, been challenged by Emily. She has pushed me to be a better entrepreneur and business owner, but I have employed Emily in the sense that she has done readings for my business, which, if you don't know, now you do. Your business has its own astrological chart. You as a leader and as that type of archetype and role that you're embodying have a purpose and a mission. I have also bought the book. So, longtime fan, first time interviewer. But Emily's books, which you can find on Amazon and in all kind of like online e-tailers in terms of books. Also published, not self-published author. So there's so many different reasons I wanted to pull Emily onto this podcast. We interviewed a publisher in the past to help all of you who are working on books understand, should I self-publish? Should I publish? I'm sure we're going to touch on a lot of those different things in this episode, but I do this is not a sell. I didn't tell Emily that this was going to happen before the episode. So I'm assuming there's I don't know, actually, are you embarrassed by this, Emily? You can answer that question in a second, but I do these every year. This is a DIY, my favorite way to astrology. And so if you're interested in understanding how to read your own chart, why you would want to read your own chart, your business's chart. You can even do this with different products, different launches, different concepts that you have to kind of determine start date, end date, best timing, etc. I love anybody that gives me the template so that I can do it my way and understand how to do it, but also learn and increase my understanding of this, science framework, however you want to think about it. So, okay, Emily, I'll let you talk now. Hi.
Hi. Thank you. I just want to call you BZ.
That's
just
it.
Who you are in my heart and my soul. Thank you for having me here. I think it has been such a journey, and thinking back to the mastermind all those years ago, what a beautiful thing you're doing on the podcast and exploring these things: creativity, spirituality, business, professional, personal, all the ins and outs, because I think it's so important. I love the topic. So I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of people, and myself included, letting the woo out of the closet felt intimidating.
Yeah.
And I believe that we are all artists, we are all creatives, and that process is inherently spiritual. That word may or may not resonate with everybody, but what I've certainly found absolutely in the Relatable series, but in all of my work with the thousands of different business owners that I've worked with now in my like decades, my old age, is there's a practice, there's a ritual, if you will, in most of our day-to-days, and especially in our work in business. And when I ask people who don't even identify as spiritual or of someone of faith how they work, we find that thread that pulls through all of these different conversations. And that's why I've called it the relatables. I'm not trying to find some gajillionaire who's onto their eighth business with a team of hundreds supporting them, making, millions in revenue every day. I want to find people that are following their passions, who are investing in what is most important to them, which is my own definition of business, and who have purposefully and repeatedly recreated their definition of success so that it inspires them and gives them a reason to actually try and sell, monetize, create structure and infrastructure around like these ideas that have been floating around in their head. Cause that's as scary as letting the woo out of the closet. So I typically start these conversations by giving people the opportunity to bring us through their origin story. You and I have been connected for a really long time. And so I would love to know where you're at, how you got here, the story of Emily, and also if you want to let people kind of understand how we came together, like why this conversation is happening now. I have a really bad habit of like asking 8-part questions, but I'm pretty sure you can hang
There
tough.
was a lot of there was a lot of parts there.
Yeah.
It's interesting with origin stories. There's so many origins and beginnings to so many
Mm.
creative and expressions. So like what I can take you back to any origin point, but for what final destination? For me becoming a business owner, for me becoming an astrologer, for my own happiness journey, my own satisfaction journey. Like give me some direction on the
How
origin
about
of what beginning, because there's so, and I think that's important too. Everyone should know there's like 1,000 beginnings, 1,000 completions, 1,000 directions. We are so multidimensional now that I have a really hard time saying, well, like, ooh, what got me to be a writer is different than what got me to be an astrologer. What got me published is different from what built the business.
I love that, and thank you for that clarification. I think for the listeners, I know your entrepreneurial journey. I think it would be really helpful for people to understand how you got to where you're at today and this sort of blueprint that I think you've applied to your various ideas and then iterations in terms of your own professional work.
Yeah. So embodying entrepreneurship and viewing myself as someone who was capable of being a business owner and wanted to be a business owner. I mean, I have to say there was the whisper from childhood to be that. I think I always wanted to be entrepreneurial. I think even in middle school, I decided that we should all rent out the pool together. And I did this and sold tickets and like took the money as they came in and paid the person for the private pool party. So it was in my heart. Okay. It was in my heart to do it, but I had a lot of fear, right? I had a lot of fear. There was like times where I was like, man, should I leave and start my own business? I have a bachelor's in psych. I was a wilderness therapy counselor for a hot second, moved back to Chicago, fell out with that journey, ended up in retail. And then I worked in management for a decade. I dedicated so many hours, so much of my energy, so much of my love to what did it take to build a team? What did it take to be successful? How to train, develop people, to the point where I always felt like I learned to run a business in somebody else's business, and that gave me
Mm.
wings. You know what I'm saying? And so I built the confidence every day on the job, and I built that courage every day on the job. And it became such a natural, my path just somehow curved and ended up being like, all right, now I'm in love with this astrology thing. I'm like doing readings. People literally were throwing money at me. And I was like, well, maybe it's not as hard as I thought. Maybe my fear was making this seem so much bigger. Maybe my fear was misleading me. And then all of a sudden I was charging for services, and then it was there. Do you know what I mean? So it was like
Yeah.
this very beautiful journey of like using my regular corporate experience to build the confidence I needed. Not that it was not, the journey from corporate over to like your own business is its own thing, but it's what gave me the wings. It's what gave me the courage. And then the passion. I just loved reading charts. I was like, I just have to do this. Like, I love it. I want to read for you. I want to read for you. I want to read for you. I meet someone. I want to know their chart. Like, I want to help them. And I think with anything, if you have that fire and passion and the wind hits right, do you know what I'm saying? It kind of carries itself. And that's what happened to me. It was all word of mouth. People would be like, oh my God. I had people pull out a credit card in my readings with them and say, I need to buy this for my friend now. Just wait a second in my own readings to buy for somebody else. And that was just like, there's a force here. There's something that is building itself here. And it just took a little bit of a way to get there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
A journey.
Yeah.
Confidence.
Well, and I think recognizing that force is incredibly powerful because it waxes and wanes, pun intended. But meaning that, like, I also know a little bit more about your story, and there have been several different iterations in terms of business and projects. And I mean, also your writing. I think you're also getting your PhD now.
Mm-hmm.
So talk up a little bit about that force when it shows up, but also what happens when you feel like, you know what, I think I've actually pushed this as far as it's going to go. And there's something new that's kind of percolating in the background.
So good. I love this so much. You're making me think in so many like beautiful ways. One, I want to be in love with life every day. That's it. I want to be in love
Okay,
with
the
life.
podcast is done. Thank you. We're good here. That was such a beautiful answer. That hit hard.
I believe I'm capable of being in love with life. I believe I'm capable of being in love with my business. I'm being capable in love with the expression of myself. I'm capable of loving the expression of everyone around me. And so from that place births all these ideas. And I tell you, I have we should bring my husband on so he could confirm this for everyone. The amount of ideas that I generate is a perplexing amount of ideas. So
I think we can, most of us listening and sitting
yeah,
right
I mean, the
relate.
creatives know it's like, oh crap, another idea. Like, I just have to start listening out because I think, in the beginning, trying to follow every idea isn't a good idea, right? Whatever. So I really hone things through time, right? And this is because I was a manager. This is because I believe in time management. This is because astrology is literally the study of the clock and the stars that I move backwards and forwards. Everything about me comes back to like timing and processing and sequencing and putting things in an order where it feels really doable, really fun, really incredible. I feel like if you do things out of order, it doesn't necessarily lend you to falling in love with life, right? So I have a very strong way of sequencing, which I don't know if that's even of interest to anyone that we could process and look at. But that's what led me. I wrote because I love to write. I got my master's in creative writing because I couldn't imagine studying anything else. 10 years of my life. And I'm thinking of the book Mastery, which I think you've read probably at some point.
Yep.
The idea that 10,000 hours equals mastery in a subject. I was doing management. I read that book and I had, I think, like 26,000 hours in management, like down to like the seminars, everything. And I felt like really rich in that space and unchallenged, but yet not wanting to leave the skills behind. And so that became a natural direction to, okay, we'll launch my own business. It's still building on the skills I had, never leaving behind an old avatar. I don't really believe in leaving behind old versions. I don't think I'm on a different path. I don't think anything like that. But I believe in embodying the old me and allowing their skills to build on each other. And so business led to astrology, and then astrology. I've been doing astrology for over 12 years. Once again, I hit that threshold. It seems to be about like 10 to 12 years for me. I don't know everybody else's thresholds, but I came to a point where I was like, I looked at my the yearly chart in astrology guides me and I follow it. And it said, here's a year you could go back to school. And so I started looking around and I just found the most perfect PhD program. And I was like, why not? All of a sudden, within a month and a half, I'm enrolled in a PhD. I told my husband, he didn't even blink. He's like, I don't know. What am I going to say? I never saw it coming, but I always saw it coming. So I was like, okay. And then, and now both of those things are traveled into the PhD. I think all of our paths, all of our versions of self build on each other, like the old Polish Russian doll set. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I'm forever doing that.
Well, so yeah, we're definitely gonna circle back to the sequencing comment because it's funny. What I was writing down, listening to the story, was how the fuck do you mom, wife, biz, write, PhD, and like live? You also got a puppy. Do you have two fur
I
babies
do.
now?
I have two. I have a
Yeah.
giant Airedale. I have
Yeah. Oh,
a
so
fox,
gorgeous.
wire-haired fox terrier.
Yeah.
He is a little bullet, 30-pound bullet of energy that's flying around the house. But yeah, it's a good
And
question.
my sense is that those various roles and parts of your life relate strongly to the sequencing. And you said you have a strong sense for sequencing. If I got that wrong, let me know. But yeah, I think
No,
people listening would love to know how the fuck are you doing it all?
I think, I mean, I really have to credit my past self that put the time into learning management, that watched other people move through time, that began to understand that when you do things in a certain order, time moves differently. I'll give you a couple of examples because I'm going to bring it into the woo. I used to manage a Lush store inside of a Macy's in this tiny little location where during the regular year, you would have like 5 people in that store. But somehow, and you felt like there was too many people in the store. Somehow in Christmas season, I could have like 12 staff, 40 customers, and they were all fitting in the same space. But energetically, it felt different to me. I know that might be hard to imagine, but just think of the different spaces that we fill, like how big they can feel, how empty they can be with the things that are inside of them. That was my first inkling to like how time changes energy and how intention opens or closes a space. You know what I mean? So in the physical reality, when I was like managing, I was learning, oh, okay, how I do things changes how I move through time. The expectation. A place could feel small or big. It's not the place. And that's where I realized, holy crap, it's not the time. It's not the place. It's my perspective. It's my own intention. It's my own sequencing. Of course, it felt normal to hold that many people in the holiday season and not normal in other areas, but the space was behaving differently. So fast forward to like, I start teaching classes. Okay, and I'm developing, and anyone who does e-courses, writes books, whatever, whenever you're trying to like legitimately transfer some knowledge to another person and you're building out the course. When I started doing this, because I was working at Marival, right, as a wellness resort here, I was really excited. I had always done team meetings at Lush. I had always led people, trained people, developed people, but I hadn't done it professionally, formally, right? I was always doing it one-to-one or kind of in these very like, um, more casual environment. So being thrown into the professional environment, working with my outlines, having these hard beginnings and endings to my classes, I realized that like I could deliver the same type of information. And when I started changing, do I deliver it in the beginning or the end of my class? All of a sudden I would have 15 minutes left over at the end of class or not. No information changed, just my sequencing. Do you see what I'm saying? It just happened to
Yeah.
me again. And I was like, oh, it's the sequencing, and so that got me fascinated with, well, how do I apply this to my own life? If I wake up and I drop my kids at school and I go straight to the gym, which I did this morning. So let's say I drop my kids at school. I come home. Me and my husband take the dogs for a walk. I head to the gym for a 1 hour training session. I do come home. I get dressed. I'm ready, and I'm on, you know, ready to go do anything else I want to do. And I almost feel like most of the things I need to do are done in the beginning of the day. So everything feels so free, so creative beyond that space. However, if I had spaced it out and I was like, I'll take my dogs for a walk an hour after I get home, and then I'll go to the gym 2 hours later. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And if going to the gym doesn't, before walking the dogs doesn't work for me. But I think that's one of the nuances that we have to learn about ourselves. I flow through time like nothing. Like, this movement feels so good. I feel in motion. I feel in flow. I feel in love with life. I'm doing what I want to do when I want to do it. even if it's not, the mundane to the non-mundane, it's all in a way that flows, right? It was the same when I worked a shift at work. It was the same when I go to teach, how I teach. It's the same when I sit down to write. If I don't do it in a certain sequence, I can't, that energy, like I was saying, doesn't contract and expand in the same way. Holy crap. I don't know. Am I allowed to swear on your podcast?
Yeah, I've said fuck like 5 times already. You're
Holy
good.
shit. Who would have thought that sequencing made that big of a deal? I
Yeah.
wouldn't have. I wouldn't have until I saw it in my own career and started to be like, you know, the the amount of time, the timing of everything changes the outcome. And I'm obsessed with time. Obsessed with it. Probably unhealthy. You perfectionism, me time obsession.
No, time obsession has been the undercurrent forever and always. Perfectionism is definitely a new one that I am like, oh shit. Emily and I wanted to jump back in quickly. We felt like we did a fun side quest about going to the gym in terms of sequencing. So we both went to the gym. And now we're going to do a deeper dive into sequencing because it is a really, really powerful tool. And even I am not all that familiar with how Emily uses sequencing in her writing and in her business. But I have a feeling it's going to be very applicable to anybody who prioritizes their creativity and is also juggling 18 different balls at the same time and not dropping any of them. So, Emily, with that, would you please help us understand what you mean by sequencing when it comes to your writing and when it comes to your businesses?
Yeah, for sure. It's a little bit esoteric. It's a little bit woo. It's a little bit business. It's 1,000% me and like how I process. So I think the idea behind it is universal. Whether or not my sequence equals somebody else's sequence might vary or be different. But the idea is that if I do something in a certain order, will the outcome of the project I'm working on be changed? Right. So if I write a book and I approach it, there's 1,000 ways to approach writing a book, right? Like you could do a page a day. You could, just start writing whatever comes to you. You could pull different pieces from different genres of your life. You could go back and get old blog posts. Like there's like a million ways one could do it. And I fundamentally believe that the order in which it is done changes both the outcome and also the amount of time and energy necessary to reach the outcome. So for writing, I'm not going to lie, it's mostly trial and error for the sequence I've like landed upon. And it's so simple, you won't believe me, which is why I don't really often like share it with people or think to share it with people, because people often just don't, they want it to be so complicated that they won't believe me. But this sequence I landed on, just through my journeys, having written since I was in the fourth grade. And I have created, and I meant to say this before, like I have 5 books actually now. So I have the 3 published and by Red Feather, and then I have 2 self-published on Amazon. And my sequence is this: you write the title fucking first. The title comes first. The title better be ballsy. It better be bold. It better like have so much force that it makes you want to write the thing. To just start writing has like never served me to randomly do it. Like I really want to like hone and have my energy field bigger than the project. So I write the title first. The title has to exist for me. Once again, that is a part of the sequence. If someone said, Emily, just go make this class, or Emily, just go do that, like it all starts with the title. Even when I make my classes for Uncommon Goods, it all starts with that title and that breakdown. And then the second step is just to write a table of contents, right? So in books, it's like, okay, let me line up the chapters, and then let every chapter title be as powerful as the original title, or lending to the force of the original title. And that's how it manifests in books. When it is manifest in a blog, you're writing your subject line and then you're going through and you're figuring out your sections. When it comes to teaching a class, I'm giving the class a name, and then I'm making the sections, and then just writing the chapter. If I do the first 2 sequences, there's no way to mess up writing a book. And to be fair, anybody could write a title and anybody could write a table of contents, right? Like I feel like that's where like my ego can't technically, yes, I could write that. So like I can't really, the sequence eliminates my own shit show. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's also, I don't wanna say it's counterintuitive, but it's counterculture, because oftentimes, like, all those writing coaches that are out there and all the, like, how to self-publish, they always tell you, you write the title last, you write the first chapter last, sometimes you don't even write the table of contents, you kind of pitch that, and then they'll tell you the table of contents. So, I personally love this technique. It feels similar to mine. I usually come up with some super wanky title, especially for my podcasts, which then I kind of workshop for blogs and deeper, research articles, but I love it. I love it because it's simple and super powerful, and I think it gives people permission to just do the dang thing, so thank you.
Yeah. I think in an effort to outwit the part of us that might think us out of doing the great thing,
Yeah.
we need something simple. And it's the
Yep.
same with, working with astrology. I don't do elaborate, crazy interpretations, but the ones I do are so powerful and always work just because I pick the simplest way kind of using it. And I think if if we acknowledge that everyone's sequence could be different, you know what I mean? Like, then I think that really breaks us free as well. Because maybe someone's sequence is like totally different than mine, and they don't want to write like that and they want to do it different. But I think the secret and the key is that it motivates itself. Like the first
Yep.
step motivates the second step.
Yep.
And by the time you've taken two, every other step is easier. Like once I've done those first two steps, I can't fail my third step because
Yep.
I've already like it kind of feeds itself, becomes like a little self-fulfilling little cycle that I have thought about. And even just to pause and to think about like how you write or why you write. And tons of people come to me and say they want to write books. And I think tons of people get stuck, but writing a book is about like knowing yourself, being willing to be heard and put yourself out there. And the first time you do it, it's going to be scarier than the seventh, right? And so you really, if you can lock into sequencing, I wish I could have locked into it so much earlier. Oh my God, what a gift it would have been to not have had to untangle my own shenanigans to get me to do what I wanted to do. It's like, you want to do what you want to do, but you can't do it because you make it into a complicated process when it's actually relatively simple.
Yeah, I mean, just to give you all of us a little bit of grace and forgiveness, I think we want to overcomplicate something that we're not doing, because when we recognize it's 3, maybe 4 steps, we don't have a lot of excuses. And it takes a certain level of experience, and by experience, I mean repeat failure, to realize like there's a lot of ego wrapped up in what will they think? What if I fail? What if I can't do it? And once you realize like all of those things are going to happen and you can still do the dang thing, it gets a lot simpler. So thank you again for kind of giving all of us permission to simplify our own creative processes. How do you use sequencing in business?
So, I mean, I think I'm a kind of a three-parter. Like
Yeah.
everything I've realized has three parts, and it might come down just to my astrology training. Do you know what I mean? Because there's four elements, but every element is expressed in three modes. And so like three is harmonious in astrology. It's the shape of a triangle, et cetera, et cetera. In business, I find, and I had to like really like, I've been doing it for a long time, and I was doing pieces of it in the beginning of my business and not getting very far. And then when I finally paid attention, then I did get a lot further. So to create is step one. So to create something that someone can experience from me, whether it's free, whether it's bought, to produce the dang thing, and then to bring it to production. So meaning that like to bring it available to people to actually get it. And I think that is a big issue, at least for me originally, was I would make so many things and they existed, but I didn't bring them into the marketplace. I didn't bring them to places where they could be bought. I didn't make it easy for people to come and purchase from me. People would email and be like, I want to buy something from you, but like there was no easy way. And I realized as a creative, what's the point of writing the book if I don't put it out there? What's the point of making the class if I don't put it out there? And so that really is the journey, is one project at a time. Build it, create it, make it everlasting available. Like make it something that wasn't just going to sit in the back of my website or an email I wrote out to people 7 years ago. Something that's truly like, hey, if you want it, come get it. And that wasn't my skill, to know all those processes, to know where to put it. I have products on Amazon now. I have products through my own website. I have products in different places, but that's my process in business, is like really be aware of bringing it to fruition. I call it the 3/4 principle. People like to get 3/4 of the way and then jump ship. I learned this from my husband because he likes to eat 3/4 of every food and leave the other quarter behind. And I was like, this is like a phenomenon. And I realized I do it too with my creations. I could write. I write. So, write unless I crystallize it, unless I bring it out, like I've not finished the whole sequence. Do you see what I'm saying? I
Yeah,
don't know if that makes sense,
100%.
but
It's
that,
so, I mean, just correct, like, I'm gonna repeat it just to make sure I'm understanding it. Create it, make it available, and then help people know that this thing is available.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And
simple.
make, so, yeah. But you'd be shocked how much I could trick myself out of that, or how often I forget it. Do you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like how quickly I could be. So I have my flashcards on Amazon right now, which is amazing. And I designed those for my students and I'm so proud of them. But the most fun part for me is the making of the thing. So then I want to make my next thing. So I've already made a ton of more things and I'm like, okay, no, we have to bring this to market, or we have to really like get it to a place where someone can find it. And I have my yearly reports that now I'm bringing to market. And I already have a project like then behind that, probably 10 more projects sitting where I kind of have to push energetically back and say, no, you don't get to create your next thing until you follow your sequence on this final thing.
I love that you mentioned that because that brings us back to your original point in terms of creativity and ideas and timing, which I think sums up and reinforces this concept of sequencing. The ideas are good. The timing will be right. It just might not be now. And so the sequencing also holds you, I don't wanna say it's accountable, like it keeps you responsible in terms of like this thing hasn't yet, like a baby takes 9 months to gestate. Like, sure, we can try in 3 months, but like it's probably not gonna be very cool. Like, that's what I should have, it's like a trigger warning in that one. But the point being, like, let it do its thing, follow your own sequence. You'll know when you've reached completion, and this then allows you to really, like, talk about a pipeline. You're just, like, laying them up and knocking them down. So, yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah. It has to feed itself. It has to
Mm,
leverage energy forward and backward and control the field, which is me. So a sequence needs to learn how to control me, and my strengths and my weaknesses, which I'm a front end person. I'm back at uh, even in management, I
literally
was a
saying
front.
like the Ouroboros right now.
Well, right. And maybe someone else doesn't like, they don't like the beginning part or whatever. I think it's just then like learning how to harness that energy into itself so that it fulfills itself and then perpetuates over time, becoming easier and easier for us to do. And I mean, especially too, like for intuitives in business, I think maybe it's too much of a generalization, or even with artists, we love the creativity. I think that last part of the sequence of bringing it to market and like doing or bring it to production, however you want to put the words, I think that is where we're like, oh, okay, in a little bit, or like, we want to start that next thing. And I want to make sure that if I'm going to put my energy, my heart, my love, my soul into something I create, at least gets to be born.
Hell yeah. Cool. Well, you just made
Yeah.
everything that much simpler and easier, and now I'm all, like, fired up and wanna, like, go figure out what my sequence is, so thank you.
Yeah. Well, when you find out your sequence, let me know. I'd love
I
to hear
will,
it.
for sure. Before we kind of sort of pull out a little bit because I wanna know more about this. So, as an example with your sequencing, throwing something new into it, AKA a PhD program, can you take us through a little bit about how you would approach that? Because it's not like, no offense to your gym training, I'm sure it's intense as well, but, like, throwing in an hour of, like, gym feels a little bit easier to experiment with, but throwing in a commitment like getting a PhD feels like I don't understand how that would happen. So help me
You know,
understand.
it's bizarre. Going to the gym feels so much harder than getting a PhD for me. I ain't never want to
Huh.
go to the gym. I did not want to get healthy.
Huh.
Dragging myself to the gym was the single hardest thing I've ever had to do in my earthly existence.
Okay, well then take
Ever.
us through how you
Ever.
overcame that particular challenge.
No,
Thank
I
you
will
for
tell you
your
about
honesty there.
my honesty. Do you want to know how I overcome wanting to come
Yes.
to the gym?
Yeah, we all do.
I think this is back when I actually was touching socials because, I don't really go on socials. I think I was
Oh,
like
that's another
scrolling
one we're
through.
gonna get to. You're gonna have
Yeah,
your full
I was on Instagram and an ad came up. You know how sometimes they're talk like I was like, shit, this is mine.
yeah.
It was like the reason this is what they said. And I
Yeah.
thought, oh, you caught me. My ego, my soul, everything was caught in one moment. It was the reason you don't want to go to the gym is because you don't go to the gym. It's like I was like,
You're like, shut up.
and then I was like, you're right. What if I just don't like it because I haven't done it enough? What if I just don't like it because I don't understand it could feel fun? What if I don't like it for all these reasons because I couldn't get past the hump? There's days I didn't want to go to work, but I still got up to go to work. And then I always would because eventually I knew work would become fun for me. I love to work. I'm a Taurus like that. Please give me, my work ethic is too
Yeah.
much, but, getting to the gym was hard. But I will say this about adding a PhD or adding anything. It's just like when you run or when you swim, you have to learn how to breathe through it. We get swallowed up when we're not breathing. We get swallowed up when we're not resting. We get swallowed up when we're not planning. Don't have to do homework every day. I have scheduled right now Monday, Wednesday, Fridays is when I do my PhD homework and I do it at the gym away from the dogs. Once again, sequencing serves me. And I do go to two different
Mm.
gyms because I'm crazy. But imagine that a girl who could never get to the gym now is enrolled and it goes to two separate gyms to meet my health needs only because of that. So thank God for ads and these copywriters because whoever wrote that changed my whole life and I didn't have to pay a dime. I just sat there, felt so seen and so like, wow, maybe I don't like it because I'm not doing it.
That is such a powerful example. Thank you. I got a lot, like you said. It's funny. I always do these interviews because I'm just like, I have a million questions for you, and I need to know things. So, I mean, we've talked to kind of like zoom out a little bit. It sounds like, I use the term batch processing. I know you know that. And sequencing is way sexier. I might steal that.
You
Anywho,
can borrow that. Yeah. Okay.
thank you.
Sexy
Thank you.
sequencing.
Uh, how do you it sounds like you're kind of getting into the logistics and admin of your day at the beginning, and then you shift more into this like free flow creative space. What does your creative process look like?
I feel like I'm always creative.
Mm,
I feel like I'm always in the process because the organization of the day feels creative. The
mm,
way in which I move feels creative. But if I'm going to sit down and write, like let's say we take something very mundane, like my monthly blog or whatever, I've had a different relationship with that writing piece for a long time. I used to write daily on Instagram. I used to write weekly. I've tried bi-weekly. I've tried monthly. So you'll see me shimmying around. My soul will shimmy around energetically until she finds what what serves her creative process the most. Now, what I've discovered is permission to try things on and take things off. This is like a little mantra I have for certain energetics, which is that like I get to try it and if it doesn't work for me, I get to switch it. Now, this is so beautiful but so hard because we don't want to like let people down. We don't want to look flighty. We don't want to look like we're unreliable, but I've given myself permission to like try things in different orders and try things in different ways till my creative process is filled. So for me, for the blog, now it looks, it didn't look like this originally because creative process grows upon itself, right? Everything, and especially in writing, the magic is in the revision. It's never in the brain dump where you first get it on the page, right? And I carry that into the creative process because why I'm not going to get it. I have the assumption I will absolutely not get it right this first time. I even told that at my Uncommon Goods where I teach astrology classes. I was like, I probably think I'm crazy, but I was like, I need you to know I won't have this right for about 25 to 50 times I teach this class and I continue to change things. And they're like, okay, Emily. So I don't think other instructors are like that. But for me now, what I love about my creative process for my monthly blog, which maybe some of the listeners can relate to, is like I make it about me connecting with the next month. I do a little monthly vision board now. I write my own blog. My blog becomes a part of my own vision board, right? I have a quote that I carry into the next month. I sit down. That just takes me about 30 minutes to an hour. But I think this is where time management and practice and mastery come in. I'm not spending, 15 hours on one blog because I'm writing it from a place of this. I think to myself, what do I absolutely need to fucking tell somebody right now? I'm not sending the laundry list. I'm not going to overwhelm them. I'm not going to make this overly technical. Like, who's the people I'm talking to? They're not astrologers. I need to give them the distilled essence, the juice of what I'm carrying into the next month and hope it serves them. And maybe it will. And sometimes it does some months and maybe it won't other months. And I kind of let that go too. But I think like, what's the juice? Like, what's the thing that I really need to like connect with? What could I share? And that's kind of my process for that. It's just like, okay, let's carry that. And then when the muse strikes, I write. I don't ever force creativity. I think that actually goes exactly against what creativity wants, is to try to like overly, force it. I just set it fucking free. It just let it rip. Like, I do want to talk to people. I do want to send out the newsletter, but not if it's with weird goals, not if it's entangled with other bullshit. Like, if the newsletter is just the newsletter, then it feels so fucking good. But I've had mentors who've tried to put, we could put all sorts of goals and ideas in our heads about what something we create artistically is supposed to do. And I think that's the death of my muse. I don't want anything to do with it. She doesn't want anything to do with it. Like, that piece of me.
Speaking of the death of your muse, it's so funny because as you said permission to try it on or take it off, I literally was writing the word permission, which does not surprise me at all. But I wanted to explore this concept of like, when do you start and also when do you stop? But you already answered that question. So you're reading my mind. But I think that's really powerful because as creatives, we are going to have a million different ideas. And I love this application of time to really I hear that as I test these ideas to see like what is going to stay with me for a minute, what is going to be something that I really want to try on. And when it feels like it's time to take it off, I have absolute permission to do that. I wanted to ask you, I think a lot of people would just assume an astrologer is very spiritual. And again, I have some intel on this, but I think one of the reasons you've been so successful in your writing and in your businesses and your projects, and I'm assuming what is going to be your PhD program, is you have a very grounded, professional, to your point, almost like corporate approach to your work, and also incredibly spiritual. How do you interweave? I describe it as having like one foot in both worlds. Or do you even approach your creativity like you do your spirituality? How do they kind of interweave either through your day to day or big picture? Like, how are you kind of tuning into both the esoteric and then the, the corporate?
A long, long, long time ago. Like, let's talk about like coming out of college and feeling like whatever decision you made just felt so heavy, so important, so collapsing. That very young version of me didn't like the workplace, I didn't like the idea of sales. I thought every salesperson was selling their soul, horrible human being. Everybody made it. I had just so much ambivalence about corporate, but I also had to get a job. So let's thank the universe for forcing our hand a little bit to kind of get on teams, to get involved in things, to overcome our own biases and to start to see things differently. Because I also love, on the flip side of that, I love the experiences we have in life. I love walking into a business. I love the grocery store. I love the boutique. How can I be the customer and not also appreciate the employee? Do you know what I mean? So I had to journey. I journeyed through that. And as a manager, you're responsible for every fucking daily task. I mean, it's hiring, firing, training, coaching, development, making sure every customer gets help, making sure inventory is correct, making sure your schedules are good. Like, everything that could ever happen, you do learn it. And I just realized over time it was all spiritual. I just realized, one of my earliest applications of astrology into business was, could I time my hiring fairs better? And I went from having 8 people show up to 22 and didn't have enough chairs. And I thought, what? I was taping crystals under my tables. They fell out. And one of my staff called me and was like, Emily, one of your crystals fell out in front of a customer on the floor. I had, I was really unwilling. I would say I'm very unwilling to like not let spirit breathe with me in professional world. However, I do strongly, and this is in the astrological chart, there's a difference. So there's 12 houses and every house is opposite of each other. And those houses are interwoven. So the 4th to the 10th is the idea of the home versus the work environment. So while I do know they serve each other and can seep into each other, and it's important that they do, I think that my avatar, my approach, or what part of my being shows up professionally is different than personally. Who I am with my husband and kids isn't the version talking right now. Right. And I think that's okay. I don't think that makes me inauthentic. I don't think it takes anything away. I just acknowledge that there's the professional piece of me that is showing up that has to speak from a different level of being. I'm a little bit less willing to make jokes, be funny. I mean, I still am me. You'll still see her in my professional avatar. Same way my husband sees me managing the house, trying to direct chores and stuff. Do you know what I mean? And like organize the day. He's probably like, oh, that manager's back. They're there. They're always within each other. And I try to harness the best for both. Right. And it's been hard because I've had to learn to check my managerial business self in the personal environment. I think that could really ruin relationships. And I've had to learn like how to not bring my jokey. There's parts of like my personal self deeper down. Like I don't bring my problems or my needs into my professional avatar because I don't think that's where they need to be. I also don't use my professional avatars where I express my own inner child. It's not my diary, right? And that's the thing. That is an important piece of like writing. I've learned that through writing too, right? If I'm writing to myself or I'm writing to others, I better be damn fucking sure know what I'm doing because it can really lead to very different places creatively.
You mentioned the muse. How do you court the muse? Like, how do you call her in? Assuming she's
Dude, she'd be courting me her whole life.
Dang, girl.
I feel like the muse is after us. I feel like how is anyone I would ask the question, who's getting away from their muse? I mean, I don't know. All I know is if I ignore her, she gets louder. So I already know I lost, right? So I admit that to myself. Like if the inkling is there, it's upon me. I must write on this topic. I must do this thing. I must make this book. I feel it. I mean, it's the sense of this yearning. It's a sense of, wouldn't it be fun to do that? Wouldn't that feel so cathartic? Wouldn't that be amazing to do? But I also think that can get you into trouble as a business owner because sometimes things that feel good to me, I probably in the past shouldn't have shared in a blog. And I had to get through that learning curve of like, wait, was I talking to myself out loud again? Or was I talking to my actual audience? Because I think people mess that up all the time.
Yeah.
And I can see them doing it. And I get so embarrassed when I did it. And I was like, oh shit, that was like my mind talking to my heart out loud. Ugh. And then I'm like, fuck, I shouldn't have done that, but once again, as a creative, you're learning like the process is more important than the outcome to me. So like it should be, right? You get better and better at the process.
Like so many like my editing brain is like, we got to grab that one. We got to grab this one. But yeah, you're brilliant. Okay. I don't know if this is going to feel like too much of a side quest here, but it feels like a useful segue. You mentioned that you're not on social media at all. How did you firstly give yourself permission to do that? But what has that journey kind of looked like? And just in terms of like, I think there's a lot of people there that their heart is talking to their mind and they're doing it out loud in front of a known audience. And that might be a reason why it feels a little, dissonant for people. But I'm curious, how do you as a business owner and a service provider find success without socials?
That was probably my biggest struggle, right? Because I always knew I didn't want to get involved with socials, but I couldn't tell if that was my intuition or my ego's fear, right? And there's so many mentors, and I have always believed in mentorship.
We're going to touch on that as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I've always believed in mentorship. I've always believed in learning. I've always believed in investing in education. Obviously, I believe in the public the higher education system, I believe in mom and pop shop sort of site, like different types of education in any way. I always believed in it. But I just fundamentally don't like what social media does to the psyche. I just fundamentally don't enjoy Instagram or Facebook. I do like, and I will fully share, I do like YouTube, and I could watch some YouTube shorts. And I do like Reddit because I'm not following people, I'm following topics, and it feels very important. But I just kept seeing people create these fake lives and their psyche getting so confused. And then all this other fallout in real relationships. And I thought, why? I don't know if I want to support this. Like, why? I don't, it wasn't processing. That's to say, for years, I tried to force myself to get on socials because I love people and they're on there and I want to talk to people. I'm very social. But I had to come to a place where maybe it was like 2 or 3 years ago. I would get really nice messages in my messages and really mean messages. Okay. Like as a creative, and just to put it out there so people know, you ain't going to get no love without no hate. They are hand in hand, my friends. I'm so sorry, but it is kind of fun when you get to the other side and it doesn't bother you anymore. But I had taught a class. Okay. I had taught a class, and I got a message from somebody like essentially like this was life changing. This was so amazing. And then somebody came at me. They didn't come at me through my email. They come through fucking Instagram, because I feel like the lowest part of the ego comes through those chats and those socials. And I didn't check it back then. I wasn't checking regularly. I just had to have gone in there, and I was like, oh my God, this person is so demanding. They were like, if they were asking me like, what was your class even about? And then they said, just this message, I was like, answer me. And I was like, whoa, who do you think you are? And I was like, I'm not even engaging, because my light just reflected in your field by looking at your bullshit. And I was like, I'm not giving y'all any of my energy. And I was like, toast, I'm done. I'm not involved with until like, I don't think the heart of what Facebook and Instagram is right. Psychologically, they've created an atmosphere that rewards certain behaviors in human beings. I just don't think it brings out the best in humanity. And I had to make a choice. And then I had to change my belief, which was I can grow an incredible business without socials. And far and away, the people who like me don't like socials either. So they like me even more for being like not on socials. And also I still exist on socials. I'm not even going back in there to cast those accounts out. Let them be. I don't want any, I know people could create fake accounts under my name and stuff. So just let my accounts live there and die until the Facebook and Instagram don't want to hold them there anymore. I did have to go back on once just for a book launch, but even then, and now I think going forward, what's the point? I'm not present on socials. The people who are supposed to find me, that's my belief, will find me. I'm loud enough in other places. You can still find me. You can still find me at a bookstore. You can still take one of my classes online. A friend could still tell you about me. I think there's plenty of ways to grow that don't require my individual avatar to be exposed on socials, nor to then call forth the underbelly of the psyche, which is exactly what is happening on socials in my perspective, right? Because I'm someone who doesn't like them very much.
Heard. Just to put a pin in this, as a published author, a lot of the times people who are seeking that representation are told you have to have an audience. In your experience, what would be your response to that?
I don't know. Have the publishers, I guess, do you have to have, I think you have to weigh that you can promote and market your book, but the thought that you could only do it on socials feels insane to me. Businesses ran before socials.
Yeah.
There's you can go and pitch your book to bookstores yourself. You can set up at different places. You can become an expert and be a teacher at a university or teach classes through a library. You can have an email list without being on socials. It's not that I don't have an email list or followers, but socials don't equal followers. And those are a lot of fake people who aren't actually watching you. They're following 3,000 accounts maybe, which means is it really that valuable? I would say your email list is far more valuable. One, because socials could be taken from you at any second.
Yeah. Yeah, it's about
email list.
Whenever people are watching this, TikTok is about to get banned in the United States. So, yeah.
I would go with, I'm going to get people on my email list who want to stay in touch with me. I mean, why would I even put the energy into putting it into somebody else's business? Which, I mean, that's what, I mean, you're drawing more traffic for them. It's like people work for those social companies without getting the credit for the fact that they're employees generating the content, right? Like,
Yeah.
they're taking creatives who want to make it, or you know what I mean? And then using their content to build things. They may not even, they could put thousands of hours into their Insta and not make a penny, but guess who does? I'm very like scrappy and I care. I believe people deserve to be paid for their work. I really do. And I don't like people to be misled at all. And I hate, you know, when it becomes just about the money, it's going to go on a weird way. Right? Like
it's already pretty damn weird out there. It's like the Home Shopping Network. You know, I don't know if you ever had this experience growing up when we still had like TV, but like you'd like fall asleep in the lounge room and like at 3:00 in the morning, like the TV would be on and they were selling you some product that like you couldn't even imagine ever having dreamed up, let alone use. And you're like, I think I need this now. It's like, that's what social media feels like to me now. It's just like advertising network. But I wanted to ask you as well, another place where you've kind of like staked your claim. And it's funny because we met in this when you were in kind of like a huge kind of blow up about it in terms of coaching and mentorship. But when you and I had first met, you had just had a really not cool experience with someone who had essentially gone to through the same certification process that I had gone through. And you were very like, oh, you're a coach kind of a thing. And I was also coming to terms with, I had started coaching. My intention was never to be a business coach or an executive coach. I was working in a whole new industry and was looking for ways to lead and to influence that would be more effective. And I kind of fell into coaching. And that was just before it suddenly became this 4-letter word and everybody, including your mom, was doing it on the internet. And so I was kind of like trying to reclaim my own confidence in being a coach. And that's like essentially where we first intersected. But I know you've had experiences with coaches and mentors who have shaped the confidence you bring to your entrepreneurship and your art today. So what kind of jumps out at you when I say, like, tell us a little bit about your experience with coaches and mentors?
I mean, what a great question. I mean, the moment, wow, I could talk about it forever. And I've had a lot. I have worked with a lot of people. I have invested a lot of money
me too.
on my journey for it. I think, you know, I was so shaped by my mentor at Lush, Heather. You know,
shout out to Heather.
Heather, that girl taught me everything I could ever want to know about sales, customer service, training, development. I mean, she created the force that I was like in that arena. Right. And so when I became a business owner on my own, I guess I kept trying to look for my Heather, you know, and I kept trying, you know, I think we do this. I think we try to recreate what worked in the past, thinking it's our answer in the present, and it's not. And so then we wander around that circle a bit. But it was hit or miss. You know, I've at this point had some coaches and mentors that, oh my God, what a fucking game changer. But I normally know right away because it's like within listening to them speak for two hours, I will learn more than it took, you know, 6 months working one-on-one, investing way too much money in some of these coaches in the beginning. I didn't have what it took to assess what I needed back then. You know, and I think the biggest shift I had was, you miss being a part of a team when you're a solopreneur.
Yeah.
And you are seeking a bond and you are seeking people to cheer you on. It was a hard learning curve to realize that no one's going to love my business the way I love my business. My job is to love my business, right? And when I realized I wasn't looking for that I wasn't looking for like the employee bond that I was missing from corporate, I started realizing I need to pick people who can give me the skill set I need. Right? Like what skill set am I going to learn? And then that was the game changer that helped me to pick people that actually could teach me. It made me become coachable as well, because I'm not sure, you know, in those other scenarios, it just got wonky so fast. It felt very karmic, like old energy playing out. And in the case that led up to you, it actually was a little bit traumatic. That coach had done something that I am fundamentally against, which was she tried to have me name my ego and give it a name and almost like shame that part of myself. And it was so, it gives me like I just want to
The ick.
vomit. That
Yeah.
gives me the ick. Yeah. I have the ick that was her approach, was like, I don't think there's any part of your psyche that deserves to be guilted or shamed. Even our underbelly has a piece of us that need to be loved. And my fear and the parts of me that say that are scared are not to be punished. They're trying to protect me. So like, I think there was just I just happened to have a very intense, poor experience with someone that left such a bad taste in my mouth. But I
Mm.
remember I had this defining moment because I was very resistant to working with people. I still think I have a little chip on my shoulder where I'm very, very thoughtful about anyone who will influence me. But I came to a point where I was like, if you don't let people help you, Emily, and teach you, you're not going to be able to keep growing. You have to accept that you made a mistake and picked the wrong mentor and stop punishing yourself for it and every other mentor who wants to help you.
Mm.
That was really important for me because I had to realize, you know what, I learned a lot, not because she was a good teacher, but because she was one that I would say was not, that kind of meddled with my consciousness, and she was not prepared for trying to build my business the way her business was built. And I realized, like everything else in life, like there's going to be the extreme opposites and that which are in the
Mm.
middle, and I've now grown towards and found other, business mentors who speak my language, who like I get, but I wouldn't have recognized them spiritually from the beginning because I wasn't ready for them either. Do you know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
had to grow up and be the student worthy of the teacher.
Yep.
And that was a piece of the puzzle that was really important for me on the entrepreneurship journey, was like, am I being a good student as
Yeah.
a teacher? I teach people. The good students are easy. The students who are willing to learn and adapt are easier to teach than the ones that are inflexible and question everything you say.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really fine line. I mean, as a coach, I've learned that discernment, and one of the reasons I have this podcast and I put so much out online is to give people the opportunity to be ready, and not just in their work and in their business, but for me, like so they can get a vibe for me, because to your point, not all, someone could have a really positive experience with a mentor or coach and then have a really negative experience. But I think like social media is actually a really powerful example we could potentially revisit, because there are going to be things that are suggested by whomever you've employed to advise you, whether it's a consultant or a coach. And there's a big difference, to your point, about being a good student who's willing to, quote unquote, learn whatever that might look like in this particular like assignment, and being told to do something that feels fundamentally off. And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, what you're describing is it takes a while to learn the difference. It's a very, very fine line between, that's an interesting strategy, let's test it, and that's not really working for me, to like, no, that doesn't feel relevant to me or what I'm trying to do. And so what I'm hearing is, with 2020 hindsight, you were able to take that experience with that coach and it helped you understand that nuance between that, I describe it like frequencies, like it's a completely different frequency, although it might sound the same, that like, this is solid advice, it's just not for me, as opposed to like, oh, I've got some kind of resistance or fear around this, and I'm going to dress it up like I'm not willing to explore that. And yeah, I mean, it's tough to kind of, I feel like I still struggle sometimes with challenging myself to go, could this be useful and I just don't want to, or is this actually not for me?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, because there's that part that hesitates, is like, is this part of me limiting tricking
Mm,
me and
yeah.
preventing me from growing because I don't want to feel uncomfortable. I don't want to get hurt. But it's also too, I always feel like sometimes we don't know we have a boundary until it's crossed. So
I
we weren't
call it my
able,
invisible line.
yeah,
Yeah,
we were
for
not
sure.
able in that moment to have verbalized or to prepared for when
Mm,
that boundary was crossed. Now, when people try to cross my boundaries that have already been crossed, I'm more prepared for them because I see the behaviors, I see the nuance. I know what I'm comfortable with. I know what I'm not comfortable with. I also know what I'm looking for, and I know what I'm not looking for. And to your point, it is safe to say that maybe that process worked for somebody else or could be of service to somebody else. It just deeply was not of service to me. But I had never attempted that. I had never even thought about that. It had never even crossed my mind. And I was trying to be, I was being so trusting. Growing a business, you learn about yourself,
Mm.
right? In like profound ways. You learn about the leader you want to be. You learn about the way you want to lead. You learn the way you want to be taught. You learn the way that you teach. Like you learn in another dimension from, corporate America. I thought it was going to be a walk in the park, owning my own business, at first. And then I realized, no, I took on a stronger creative endeavor. Like this
Mm.
is harder. This is more challenging. I know people don't always see that in the business owners, but it's a different journey of soul, a different whatever. So that was my thing. I think I had so much to still learn about myself.
Mm.
And until I knew, I just couldn't know. What's that
Yeah.
quote? When you knew better, you did better. Maya Angelou. I
Yeah.
love that quote. Yeah, I didn't know better at the time to say, no, I'm not comfortable. Don't do that. But if somebody said, Emily, let's name your ego and tell it to shut up, I'm going to say, no, I actually am a fan of the ego. I think yes, the ego can cause some trouble, but it serves a function and it exists for a reason. So leave my ego alone.
Couldn't agree more. I think I kind of just have one question left for you. You've described so much about your process and your growth and your learning experiences. We know you do a bunch of different things, but when someone says like, "What do you do for work?" or "What is your work?" How would you answer that?
I think ultimately I help people learn to connect and have a good relationship with themselves internally. So that the way you speak to yourself, the way you feel about yourself, the way you move yourself through life is a place you like to be, so that the inner
Mhm.
world feels safe, that it feels like your true home, that you get to do whatever you want in your inner world and be you. And I think so many pieces of us get lost, and I think we get incarnated and we're kind of, marinating in other people's fields and taking things on that, we do have to rediscover that connection. Astrology has been the most powerful way to do it because it reflects the true essence of people inside themselves, and it gives a languaging to what they feel that they can't say out loud. And so that that's what I do. I want people to truly feel safe with themselves, to enjoy being themselves, and to have an inner world that doesn't feel like it's constantly judging them, criticizing them, or making them feel like it's not enough, right? Like
Mhm.
I really want that place of like, I'm in love with life because we are life, right? So it's just being in love with life is another way of being in love with yourself in life. And that's kind of, I guess that's what I do.
Wow, that was so beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for your work. If people wanted to work with you, I know that sometimes you're more available and less available. I can only imagine with the PhD program, you're probably in a less available space right now. I know we're going to have a link where people can access a cosmic report from you, and that's a year ahead, correct?
So that is their birth chart. The link I sent to you is
Okay.
just the 25-page astrological written report by me of what
Boom.
their birth chart says about them. And if
Hmm.
people want to get to know my work, see my work. Of course, I teach classes with Uncommon Goods, which we can link below. And I have 3 classes with them now. There is an annual astrology charting class, which is the chart we talked about, where it predicts
Hmm.
from birthday to birthday. I have a class where I teach people how to predict. I have a sync with the moon lunar astrology charting class that teaches people about timing, connection to their intuition. And then I have just launched a new class, which is a couples astrology class, which we explore some fun things together in a little couples environment. And I've really been enjoying that. So that's the good way. Like if you like the live workshopy vibe and that's where you want to show up, all my classes are through Uncommon Goods. And then if you're more of like a DIY in your house, like my books, I think, and we could link those below. Yeah, claiming your power through astrology, your cosmic Compass are 2 astrology workbooks to help you interpret. I also, I mean, if you sign up for the report, I will send you those monthly blogs that I was writing about, right? I share kind of
I
my
forgot to
important
mention
pieces.
how much I love your newsletter as well. I'm like totally fangirling all over you, but I get a lot of fucking newsletters. I don't read most of them. That one I look forward to. And it always
Thank
feels
you.
like I get to connect with you on that level. So it's a pleasure.
Yeah, it is something I really enjoy doing and connecting with people and just sharing what I'm doing with astrology,
Mm.
which is simple and practical, sequenced,
Yeah.
all linear, like all worked out. And
Yep.
how I'm trying to like bring that energy, embody it, and make it something that's very, very powerful. Um, this last blog, this whole month, I've been really focusing on recognizing how goals are so future oriented and working more on building patterns and habits as a
Mm.
way to seek fulfillment in and of ourselves. Because if we're always needing to be in the future, that will always be imbalanced.
Yep.
So I think building patterns is kind of nature's way. So that just, for instance, is kind of some of the stuff I go into the blog. It's there's planetary alignments that are helping us to kind of see beyond, having trying to race to the future, right? And learning that like, hey, we're here now, and there's beauty we can do in every direction. And I believe we do that through patterning, right? So patterning our behaviors and sequencing.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I've been writing about all that as well this month. So we're
Yay!
drinking the same
Our
Kool-Aid. But
parallel play in the creativity and spirituality world.
100%. Emily, unless there's anything else you'd like to add, I just want to say thank you so much. I can't even believe you managed to squeeze this into your schedule. When we hit stop, I want to hear all about the PhD program as well. I'm so curious and just so impressed by your ability to continue to create and write and serve and just bring this work that you do. I've personally found it profoundly impactful in my own work and my own understanding of how I can optimize my own success and creativity. So, yeah, this is just me saying thank you so much. Thank you for giving us your time today, but thank you for doing what you do and being who you are.
Thank you, BC. You're an incredible force. I'm so grateful to know you, and I love the work you're doing in the world. So,
Oh, thanks. Alrighty, love. I'm going to say
hey,
goodbye. Well, I'm going to say pause. We're going to say goodbye to the listener, and then you and I are going to gossip a little bit about the life that is Emily. So thank you so
goodbye
much
to
for
the
listening,
listener.
everybody. We love you guys.
Mwah.